Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Over Beer. I am your host, Ben Surratt, and today I have a guest. And this guest I've been waiting to talk to for a while. He doesn't know it, but I've been waiting to talk to him for a while. Guest, who are you?
I'm Jim Harold, and I am a full-time professional podcaster. Have been podcasting for 20 years, 13 years full time.
Wow. Well, before we get into your beer, into your story, Jim, I gotta say, for me personally, this is a full circle moment for me. Okay. I started listening to the Campfire
Mm-hmm.
about 2013 or 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how you brought people on and you let them tell their story. You're
Mm-hmm.
not telling it for them.
Right.
And so you were the first inspiration, Jim, for me starting the podcast, the Biz Over Beer podcast.
Oh, that is awesome. I've heard that a few times, and every time I hear it, I'm very gratified, and I'm glad that I could spread the love of podcasting and serve as some kind of inspiration. And that's great. I think that's fantastic, and I'm honored that you did that. And I think, by the way, this is a fantastic idea for a podcast because as much as I love the paranormal, I also have a very business oriented mind as well. I'm kind of split in half.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea for a show.
Well, we're going to get to all of it. But before we do, Jim, this is Business Over Beer.
Beer, yes.
Have you brought yourself a beer?
I have, and it actually ties into a business metaphor. I brought very high priced, very elite Kirkland Lager. Kirkland Lager, if everybody can see that. Now, there's a reason for this.
Okay.
Not only do I like it, I'm more of a lager guy than an IPA or anything like that. Some people
Okay.
would say I'm weak, but that's kind of where I am. But anyway, the point being that people don't know it has won multiple awards. It won the Great American Beer Festival 2023 Gold for Munich style.
No way.
Yeah. What happened was Costco, this was featured in the Wall Street Journal. They had a beer previously, and it wasn't very good. So they went on the search for a new beer, and they found this little brewery. I can't remember if it's Oregon. Yeah, it's Oregon.
Okay.
And it's the Deutsches Brewery and Public House. I'm not sure exactly. I probably have the mispronounced it. But anyway, they found this brew and they said, "Hey, we really like this. Is this something we could bring into our stores?" And then it became the Kirkland branded beer. But here's where the business comes in. I believe when we were talking about my camera, I believe in buying high quality gear but not going crazy. I'm always looking for things that are fairly priced but have great bang for the buck, great value. So don't buy the cheapest thing, but don't necessarily buy the most expensive thing. Sometimes it's called for to go expensive. But in the case of the beer, I am getting high quality for like $14.99 or whatever it is for a 12-pack. So look for the value when you're buying equipment, buying resources for your business. Don't go cheap. Make sure you're getting quality. But if you can get good quality for a good price, do that.
Amazing. That's probably the
Cheers.
best. That's probably one of the best beer intros we've had as a guest in a
There.
while.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I am drinking the Point Amber
Ooh.
out of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So, Jim, you said you're not an IPA guy. That's totally fine. So, we lived in the Pacific Northwest for almost 20 years. We're in Wisconsin now, but that's where my love for IPAs came from. And they just do it differently there. So, if you ever have an opportunity to have a West Coast IPA, just try it.
I'll try it. Absolutely. I'm open to new things. I never want to, I may say, oh my God, Ben, I never knew. I never knew. This is great. So thank you.
Well, let's get into it. Do you remember? So you've been doing this for 20 years, Jim. So you were doing this before it became like really mainstream.
Yep.
So I want to know what made you keep going before it became mainstream?
Well, the thing is that I had started in '05 with a show called the Paranormal Podcast. I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I realized that would be a pretty good name for a paranormal podcast. And it was so early on, no one had it.
Ah,
And, I kind of slowed down for a couple of years there. I wasn't going real strong. I was still putting out shows here and there. And my day job, because I worked in traditional radio behind the scenes, was becoming a little bit frustrating, but yet people kept emailing me and say, Jim, when is the next podcast coming out? And when's the next podcast coming out? So I remember this. It was 2008, I believe, 2008 or 2009. I was sitting at my daughter's T-ball game. Now, she's in optometry school now, so
okay.
it's been a minute. And I was paying attention. But I was also listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. And he had a spot for Audible. And Dan Carlin does a fantastic job and is still podcasting today. He's a podcast Hall of Famer. He started before I did, just tremendous podcaster. But anyway, I'm like, Jim, you're frustrated at this job. Like good ideas often do, they come when you're not working. I'm like, you're frustrated at this job. You're not going to quit your job tomorrow, but people are saying, hey, I want more of this content. And this gentleman here, he's getting advertisers and they're paying money. I never thought of it as a full-time career at that point. This could be a good side gig, a good side hustle. And I said, you know what? Let's get serious about this. Something told me to do that. And I said, I'll give it 6 months. And every week I will put out a show religiously. I'll get super strict about it. And then lo and behold, about month 6, I get contacted out of the blue for the agency that was repping Audible at the time and saying, hey, Audible would like to sponsor your show.
Wow.
And I thought, that's the sign, ding, ding, ding. That's the sign from the universe to keep going with this. And I never stopped after that. 2011, I believe it was. I started a Plus Club, a premium offering, where before hardly anybody was doing that kind of thing. First day I had 200 members, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, there's something here. And I also introduced, Campfire in 2009, which is, my most popular show. That's the show where people come on and share their personal stories. And it just continued to build slowly. And I remember when people said podcasting's dead and all this like that. I don't believe it's dead. And it just, every year it was like a little bit of a stair step. And then in 2012, I was talking to my wife, and I'm working a full-time job. And, coming home and basically working a second full-time job. And I said, you know what? 2 things. One, this continues to grow even though I'm doing it as a side hustle. I think if I could dedicate full-time to this, it could really grow. And secondly, I can't continue doing both at this pace. I'm working 2 full-time jobs. I could do one, working basically 2 full-time jobs and meeting my family commitments, going to the kids' ball games, cutting the grass, doing everything a dad does. And it's like, something's got to give. So either I strongly cut back or just quit the podcasting, or I make it my full-time gig. And my wife, Dar, who is now works for the business, she stepped away from speech therapy and started working for the business a couple of years ago. She said, go for it, and we thought, you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I was still relatively young at that point. I said, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go get another job. And for 13 years, it's worked out. And I thank her for giving me that opportunity. But I never really, after I decided to really go for it in 2008, I never considered quitting at that point. It's like, this is what I'm doing. And I've never wavered from that since.
Wow. What was your biggest fear though? There had to be a fear. I mean, you were like going full into the podcast, universe. Was there any fear of leaving your 9 to 5 and just plunging in?
Very little, surprisingly. I mean, because I'd run the numbers and I wasn't going to do great. I wasn't going to make money hand over fist, but I'd run the numbers as long as I could secure health care for my family, which I was able to do. That was the moment I knew. In fact, I remember we went to Disney World for a vacation, and I got the email from the organization that I work through for my health insurance. And they said, you've been approved and blah, 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 and da, 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 and fill out this paperwork. I'm like, that's it. That's the green light. I mean, that was kind of the practical side. Once that happened, I never looked back. I never looked back. And I don't, I think, I come from a family where my dad worked for a steel company for 30 plus years. Then he retired. And as soon as he retired, within a few years, they basically got rid of all the retired steelworkers' pensions. I mean, their pensions, and the government picked it up, like the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, whatever it is. They cut his health care. And based on that and my own experience in corporate America, I think a lot of times what we think of, and I was there, I was raised that you go and work for one company for 30 years. Now that doesn't
Right.
exist anymore. But when
Right.
I was being brought up, that was the ideal. You get a good job and you stick with it. And the thing is that security these days is an illusion.
Mm.
First of all, the top security is your health. That you ask me what keeps me up at night or what worries me then or worries me now is things like health, because that I can't control for. As long as I'm healthy, I feel that I have the wherewithal to overcome any challenges.
Mm.
We had a lot of challenges in the last year with the business. I overhauled everything. I overhauled my media host. I overhauled the web host. We overhauled a huge percentage of our Plus Club. And it was a heavy lift. It was like flying a plane while trying to build it.
Mm.
But I did it. As long as I have my health, I have the utmost confidence that I can meet any challenges. That's the big fear. But it never freaked me out, because I think that illusion of security with a regular 9 to 5 had been pierced.
Mm.
In other words, if I bought the myth of the secure 9 to 5, I would have been terrified.
Mm.
But plus, I worked in sales a lot of the time, so you weren't insulated from threat of losing your job. If you didn't perform, you would lose your job.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there was never this, oh, we're going to take care of you or whatever. It's like, no. It's like every day you're fighting for your job. So I think maybe it was that background too. It was like I was used to, this is I hate this saying, but it's true. You eat what you kill kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that was kind of my career. So this was really nothing new, except this time I could call the shots. I can make the decisions, and I would live with the consequences, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But it wouldn't be a scenario like I ran up against my career. I would have what I thought was a great idea, then find out 4 or 5 years later it was a great idea, but nobody would listen to me. And sometimes they weren't all great. I'm not saying all my ideas were great, but there were some that were really good, and nobody would listen to me. So I just decided, you're not going to listen to me. I'll do my own thing. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But you know what? It's on me.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Jim, you're fantastic. We'll get into the paranormal stuff. We will, I promise. But
And
I
by
wanted
the
to
way, I just want to make this thing.
Yeah.
This is going to sound like, my God, Jim is business oriented. And I am. But I still have a true fascination for the paranormal. I've had it since I was a little kid watching In Search Of. I am still fascinated by it today. I'm looking at different things in news like 3-Eye Atlas and different things that are going on.
I was going to ask you about that, Jim.
Yeah, that's
Hold on, we'll
crazy.
save that for later.
Yeah. But the point is, I'm really interested in this stuff. But I kind of look at my brain like, newspapers used to have this. They still have it, I guess, if they exist. Or radio, you have like the publishing side or the salesy side, the business side, and then you have the editorial side.
Yep.
And I look at my brain like that. I have a very strong editorial side, and I will turn down sponsors, and I will turn down things I think are a conflict with what I do. So I have that church state kind of thing built in, and I have a very good sense of that. I think that's one of my strengths.
Love that.
I won't bastardize the show or sell out the show for a quick buck. But I do have a business sense, because the thing is that for this to succeed and to continue, it has to grow. So I'm always looking at ways to grow and making it better and improving a little bit every episode.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Well, we'll get to the paranormal stuff for sure, but I'm glad you want to stick on the business just for a little bit longer, because it interests me, doing what you're doing, but just with the podcast stuff. But I really want to know is what were or what was one big growing pain that you had to overcome? Or something that you didn't realize would have something you didn't realize about what you're doing.
Yeah. The thing that's tough was a long time getting your arms around the accounting and all the business stuff that you have to do, compliance issues, those kind of things. And I think that it was really a number of years before I found the right people in terms of accounting and things to work with me and those kind of things. I think that was the toughest challenge.
Mm,
Was, since you have an LLC and since you're doing things in a very structured way, you have to follow through like a business. I mean, I never had any problems, but it was really a headache for me until I found the right people in that regard.
mm.
And getting back to the value proposition, they ain't cheap,
No.
but they're worth every penny. So I think that a lot of the administrative stuff, to me, doing the podcasting piece, I mean, it's the easy piece to
Hmm.
me. I
Hmm.
mean, I feel like now I could wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you give me 10 minutes and I could record an episode. I've got it set up in here where I can click about 5 buttons and we're ready to go. And I always joke I could like wake up at, like I said, in the middle of the night and record a podcast episode because I've done it over 3,000 times.
Crazy, man.
So, but the hard part are the challenges of administration, accounting, and those kind of things. So I think that's the biggest hurdle. And that's why I think, people get this feeling, oh, I'm going to go full time. I'm going to go full time and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to do all this. And it's like, it can be done. It can be done. Now, I wouldn't say I make a middle class living. I'm not a millionaire even. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea, but I make a middle class living, which for me is fine. I'm very happy with that. My youngest graduated from college. My oldest is going to optometry school. We're okay. Just now focusing on, 10, 15 years from now, we got to position ourselves for retirement. But the point is that it can be done, but it's not as simple as just recording a podcast episode. There's so
Mm.
much more to it. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm glad you brought that up because I talk about that all the time on the show and just with other business owners. It's one of the things that people, the lust and the shiny object that is employment and being your own boss is you forget that what you still need is a team behind you. And you
Right.
can't wear all the hats
Right.
because if you do, I mean, you're setting yourself up for, you know,
And honestly, that's always been a problem for me. I probably wear too many hats today, but
mm,
there's some things I absolutely had to outsource, and I need to get better about that with editing and things like that. And for the longest time, I had my youngest daughter who's extremely proficient with editing and so forth. And I was able to lean on her for a lot of editing, and she did a great. She edited the Campfire for since her high school days for about 4 or 5 years, and
wow.
nobody knew that. I mean, I mentioned it, but I don't think people realize this is being edited by an 18-year-old. But I was such a taskmaster. I'm like, no, that's wrong. Go back and fix it. Here's what you did wrong. I mean, there was no room for, oh, honey, that's okay. I mean, I was supportive, but but she got paid well. She got paid well. There was no volunteering going on. But now she's into her own career. She doesn't have time for that. My wife, since she started working for the company, she started to take on some of those functions, but I've taken back some of those functions. So I have to constantly remember and say, Jim, you need to look at outsourcing. So, it's the old saying, you don't need to be working as much in the business as on the business. And I should be really focusing on things that only I can do. And I need to take that to heart a little bit. So it's a process. Nobody's perfect and you've always have room to improve.
Amen to that, brother. Um, we're gonna move into more of your podcast itself, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you early on, or even now, I guess, how did you earn credibility and trust with your listeners? Because this is something that can translate with any business is gaining
Right.
that trust. So how did where did you get that?
I think it's persistence. I think it's consistency. I think it's always being there and never changing. Doesn't mean that you can't adapt or add new things in. We've added new things in, like our new virtual community, which is kind of a replacement for a Facebook group. Because I was getting tired of Facebook groups censoring all my posts. So I
Yeah.
just decided to launch my own. But so always be consistent. I mean, you follow the shows, you know, I'm extremely consistent with my publishing schedule. And I mean, and some people might view this as bad, but you can listen to a Campfire episode now. And if you listen to a Campfire episode from when you first started, it's the same show.
Jim, I was going to talk about that. Your consistency.
Yeah, it's you know what it is? It's the Bob Barker principle.
Ah.
People our age, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but people generally our age grew up, and on those sick days, you knew every time that you were home with your saltine crackers and your ginger ale, you could turn on CBS and Bob Barker would be there. Come on down.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be. And I kind of, one thing I've done through my career is I've kind of not modeled myself, but I've tried to take the best parts of certain broadcasters because I've always been a broadcasting nerd. I love broadcasting. I love the history of broadcasting. So I could talk to you about old time radio from the 30s and 40s. So what I've tried to do is I don't want to copy because, you know, I can't be Art Bell. Nobody's going to beat Art Bell. Art Bell was the best to ever do it. But I mean, as far as like broadcasting personalities, people that I worked with when I was in radio, I was on the business side, but I was always watching them. I was like the character in Monsters, Inc. Always watching, always watching. I was always watching broadcasters to pick up things. Broadcasters locally. I mean, you talk about business. One thing I pride myself on, I think I do some of the best host-read ads out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people like Paul Harvey that I kind of took bits and pieces of how he did spots. Leo Laporte, the tech podcaster who's been around forever,
Mm-hmm.
the way he does spots, and also throw in a dash of genuineness because I don't take ads for just anything. I only take ads for things that I feel could be of use to my users, and I pretty much use almost all of them. And if I don't use them, I don't say that I use them. So. I've always tried to watch what other people do and model the best pieces. So if you hear me say something like, Ben from Wisconsin up that way where they have all the cheese, he's joining us on the Campfire. That's Bob Barker.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
think about it. When a person would come on the stage, hey,
I never thought of
Bill,
it like
yeah,
that.
Bill, you're in the Navy. Where do you serve? And I do that. I mean, I don't like to sound like a copycat, but you take the best techniques of what people do in a good way, in an homage.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, yeah, you definitely try to watch what, and if you're a roofer and you grew up as an apprentice and you watched maybe how the guy who taught you to put nails in, hammer nails, how he did it, and you pick up pieces. Or you watch how somebody ran their business, and maybe they ran their business in a way you didn't appreciate. So you don't do that. For example, when I was in radio, not all, but most of the stations I worked with, because they were under corporate pressure, they would take ads for basically anything. And it was basically a question, does the check clear? That was the question. It wasn't what was. I remember one of the big network stations I worked for or was associated with a big major network, they had these ads on. Our team is coming to your market and we're going to be scouting for kids for the Disney Channel. And it's like, did you really take that order? And I know that they report to somebody, it reports to somebody, it reports to somebody in the Ivory Tower in New York, and they don't care. But I said to myself, if I ever get in the position where I own a radio station, which is essentially, if you think about it, what I have, except I don't have an antenna, I have an internet line. So I'll never do that.
No, wow.
Never do that. Now we do take programmatic adding, which is ads which are automated on some of the shows, and I do my best effort to censor out certain categories like medical or, California psychics or whatever it is. Anything like that, that I can censor out in terms of the automate. I can't monitor all those ads, but I do my best to censor those kind of things out because I only want to offer or present things that I feel. But most of the time I turn on and I hear those programmatics for big national brands like Target and things like that. And it's like, I have no problem with that being on my show. So I really do my best to make sure that we're only, and HostRed is definitely all approved by me. So you can look at the best practices for ethics, employ them. Best practices for the way you do your job, whether it's driving a nail or introducing Mildred from Oregon. Whatever it is, pick up on those best practices and incorporate them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did with, I mean, I said it from the very beginning when, when I first introduced you is like, I loved how you brought the people on your show to have them tell their story because they're the ones who can tell it the best.
Yes.
And so I adapted that from listening to you. And I was like, I love that. I mean,
which is great.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's go to go to what you do then in the paranormal. And boy, how did you get into it? Like, why the paranormal?
Well, it started, I blame Leonard Nimoy. Most people think of Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock, but I think of him as the host of In Search Of.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was a little kid in elementary school. I was a weird kid. I was reading books about the Bermuda Triangle and watching In Search Of, and then later Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh man, that music still freaks me out.
Yeah. And then, of course, with Art Bell in the 90s with Coast to Coast AM, he really is the best to ever do this. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to touch him. And I was always fascinated by it. Never thought in a million years that I would do anything with that interest professionally. So in 2005, I had heard about podcasting, 2004, 2005, and started listening to Adam Curry, who was kind of the co-inventor of podcasting along with Dave Weiner. Started listening to Leo Laporte, who I watched years earlier on a TV station, cable station, Tech TV. And I looked him up one day. I'm like, I wonder what Leo's doing. He was such a great personality. Turns out he was doing talk radio in California for a station called KFI. So I started streaming his radio show, just going and streaming from the website. I think that might have been the days, if people remember Real Player. It's been so long ago. And started listening to him. He started talking about this thing called podcasting. And the funny thing about that, his origin story was some kid called in and said, you ought to put your show on a podcast. And he's like, what's a podcast? So I started listening to him. I started listening to Adam. And I was listening to these guys. Boy, I said, boy, this would be fun to do, but I can't do what these guys do. These guys are multi-decade broadcast professionals. But then I heard like people were doing homegrown ones. And I started listening to those. And I'm like, well, I can't do what Leo and Adam do, but I could do what these people do. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to do this because I was a frustrated broadcaster. I'd gone to school for broadcasting and had done well and did TV stuff for college and some stuff that was aired, through most of the U.S. But that was all in college. And then instead of getting right into on camera or on the mic job, I got into a business job in a sales function as a sales assistant just to get any job. This was really before the internet really kicked in. And because that's what they told you to do. Just get in the building. Don't worry what you're doing, sweep the floors or wherever. And then one thing happened to another, and I ended up as a salesperson. And then later as kind of quasi-management. And I thought, oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm in my 30s. I've got a wife and 2 kids, a mortgage. I'm never going to be able to follow my dream of broadcasting. But then again, I heard of this. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Politics, you know what? I have my political beliefs like anybody else, but I want to get along with everybody. And I maintain that to this day. We don't get political on the shows for just that reason. Sports, hey, I have my opinions on sports. Hey, I was a Browns fan. Who could not have an opinion? Yeah, very tough, very tough. Ooh, paranormal.
No, it's para daughter. She came down.
Here.
She grabbed herself a bubbler. You know what a bubbler
Yeah,
is?
yeah, 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 yeah.
She grabbed
Dum
one
dum
and is like,
dum.
boop. So,
So
anyways,
anyway, we could have kept with the illusion, Ben. We could have kept with the illusion. But now, anyway, the theater of the mind. So anyway, I thought of all these different categories. I can't add anything. Music you can't do, which you still can't do on a podcast, which is a crime. They need to fix licensing for podcasting.
yes.
And I said, you know what? I love the paranormal, and I will do an interview show, the Paranormal Podcast. I'll do it for 6 months, and it'll be great because I'll be able to interview all these people. And within 6 months, not only will I be able to have fun with broadcasting, my little thing, maybe 3 people will listen, but I'll understand all this stuff finally after 6 months. Well, I hate to tell you, Ben, 20 years in, I still don't understand it, and I have more questions than I started out with.
Wow. I bet. Why do you think ghost stories connect so much or with people so deeply?
I think they do because almost everybody has a story. When I think of Campfire, Jim Harold's Campfire, because I still do the Paranormal Podcast, and that's my oldest show. That's the interview show with authors and experts. Jim Harold's Campfire is the storytelling show where people come on and share their stories, as you said. I think people resonate with these stories because I think almost everybody has had some kind of an experience. Now, it may be a full-blown ghost story. It might be a very extremely vivid dream that seems different. It might be a sign from a loved one. It might be, a near miss of getting killed or something. It may be a premonition. I think almost everybody, even hardcore skeptics, have a story like that, or someone they know and trust and believe has a story like that. I think, in short, they resonate because they're universal.
Yeah. Have you ever had, and how do you handle like very emotional stories? And how do you handle that? How do you like, what do you do to, I don't know.
Well, I try to, and I don't even like this phrase, but it is actually appropriate in this case. I like to give people space. We had a story today where a woman was telling about a loved one who passed, and she had a dream visitation before she was aware the woman had passed. And then she had this very vivid dream. And then the next morning, she had found out about the passing. And, she started to tear up and to choke up. And I just shut up and let her, experience that. And of course, if things would get, and I think I've had this a time or two, if things get too emotional, this is recorded. There's no law that it has to air. I ask the person, do you want to continue? Do you want to pause? Do you want this to air? Those kind of things. But generally, my answer is just to give people space to have that moment to react. Because I think a lot of people are very sincere and they really mean what they're saying. I think the vast majority of people who are calling into Campfire are telling the truth as they experienced it.
Mhm.
Now, is it always possible if they saw a light in the sky, it wasn't ET, it might have been the planet Venus? That is possible. I can't say everything we talk about is supernatural, but I think a lot of it is. And I think the vast majority of people, and I've had a couple people here and there over the years kind of try to pull my leg, but I think the vast majority of people are being very sincere in kind of one of my, ethics are big with me. So one of my biggest commandments of the show is to respect people's stories and respect them. Even if it's a story that I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, that seems a little far-fetched. I think my job is to step back and let them tell the story as they experienced it and give them kind of a non-judgmental place they can share it.
Love that. Has your view on the afterlife changed at all?
Only in the sense that it has strengthened my view of it. I mean, the funny thing is that I'm of the Christian faith, but I'm not what anybody would call, probably your traditional church going, church every Sunday and those kind of things. But I think overall, this whole experiment has increased my belief in a higher power. It has increased my belief in an afterlife. So in a weird way, you wouldn't think this, but I think it's increased my faith and my absolute belief that there is an afterlife,
Yeah.
which seems like an odd outcome, but it is what it is.
Yeah. What makes a great story, Jim?
Number one is sincerity. And I think I often feel like if somebody has 10 stories, they don't have one. I
Mm.
think, somebody wants to come on and tell 8 different stories in a 10-minute thing. It's like, I mean, it can be if it's longitudinal, if it's like I lived in a haunted house and these 3 or 4 things happen. But, sometimes some of the best stories in my mind are someone says, nothing ever happens to me. But there was this one time. And then they just tell the most jaw-dropping story. So I think, I think being able to focus on one story, sincerity, and just in the way they tell it, you can tell when people are really, I think you can tell when people are being sincere and it's something that's impacted them, whether it's frightened them, it's puzzled them, it's scared them, it's made them sad. I think that emotion really comes through. So those are some of the great elements of a story. It all comes down to the storyteller. And when I say storyteller, you think storyteller means fictional, but not necessarily, not in this case. I'm just using that, maybe experiencer is a better word. But I got to say, it amazes me because I thought when I started this, the vast majority, not the vast majority, but a significant minority would be people snowing me. And I don't see that over 16 years. I don't see that. I could count on one hand the time I thought people were calling in and just making stuff up. On one hand.
Wow, that's amazing. You've done how many episodes?
Well, of Campfire, I've done over 700. I got to tell you how many of Campfire
Jeez.
I've done. And it's currently, for the last few years, it's been 90 minutes a week. 732.
Wow.
We'll release 733 this coming week.
Now, how many shows do you have altogether?
Well, actually, off the top of my head, I couldn't. I've got so many.
No, I mean,
but the free shows, because we have free shows and we have plus shows. But the free shows, we have the Paranormal podcast, which comes out weekly, and that's a show where we interview authors and experts. That's the longest running one. Jim Harold's Campfire, that comes out weekly. That's a 90-minute show, and that comes out every week. Then we have the Paranormal Report, which is a show that I didn't, 15 years ago, stopped doing it. Had a couple different hosts, and last year I revived that with my wife, Dar Harold, and we have a great time. She gives me some static, gives me a hard time, which is good. I need that. And we talk about, we'll usually look at 8 to 10 paranormal stories for the week and talk about those. And all those shows are on video now too. And they're on video on YouTube and on Spotify. And then I have another show, which I'm not sure when this is going to air, but will be relaunching in November, Jim Harold's Crime Scene.
Oh.
Now, let me tell you something. Now, you know how I said not all my decisions or my ideas are good ones?
Right.
I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
This had to be maybe 2012, I think. I remember I was at our local pool. And I thought, you know what would be great to add to my shows, because at this time I only had, I didn't have as many. I said, a true crime show. There's nobody really doing that in a big way. So I started Jim Harold's Crime Scene, but I made a crucial mistake.
Okay.
I put it behind the paywall of my Plus Club.
Ah.
That was before Serial and before the big true crime podcast craze. I had one of the very early true crime podcasts. Maybe if I had put that out for free, we would be talking about the well-known true crime podcaster, Jim Harold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is I do think my passion is more in the paranormal, so I'm kind of joking. But I do think that show would have been much, much, much bigger.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've launched it. I take it out. I've relaunched it, but I think it's a good show. We do, and that'll be, again, relaunching in November. And that one is just basically serious interviews with authors and experts who have written about true crime. We try to not make it super gory. It's not like, oh, he twisted the knife 27 times and lick the blade. That's not, and it's not with the spooky music. But we do talk about, some a lot of serial killer stuff and some pretty disturbing stuff, but we try to do so in a respectful way. And I kind of struggled with that show because I'm like, are we kind of capitalizing on this tragedy and these people who have lost their lives and been victimized? And then I thought one other angle to it that made me feel okay about it. And it was like, if one person listened to that show and they locked their door, or maybe they parked under a lit lamp pole, or they were just a little bit more careful, and maybe that saved one person from some horrible crime, it's not a bad thing to do. So,
Yeah.
and again, we try to be respectful, but so that's coming back. And then we have a number of plus only shows. Those go into the rotation every month. We put out 8 pieces of content exclusively for our Plus Club members. And I don't believe we've missed one month since the Plus Club started in 2011, which is pretty remarkable.
Wow.
And they're basically like the Paranormal Podcast, but they're topic specific. So we have UFO Encounters, The Other Side, Ancient Mysteries on the Air, The Cryptid Report, and one other one I'm forgetting. So I don't know how many that is, but that's what we've got. And it keeps me busy. It's certainly a full-time job.
Oh, yeah, it's a full-time gig, 100%. I got so many questions for you, Jim. What have you noticed with social media because you've been doing this since 2005?
Yeah.
What role has social media, or how has social media impacted what you do
Yeah.
and what other podcasters are doing?
I don't think the shows would be as popular as they are now without social media. That being said, I think social media is becoming a little bit of diminishing returns. Now, part of it's maybe the demographic I'm in. I don't do TikTok because of security concerns. But I'm Facebook, Instagram, X. And the thing is that I see it as diminishing returns because pretty much the platform sees so focused on surfacing paid advertising and paid kind of things, and I don't think they skew towards my demographic. So while I'm still active on those, I think that it's a lot less return organically than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
No.
I still remain on those, and there's some people who will never move off of those platforms like Facebook. So, for example, we have a Facebook group. It was up to, I think it's 26,800 now or something. It was 27,000. But, I was posting things and maybe a few hundred people would see it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if somebody in the group shared their ghost story or their spooky story, even fewer people would see it. And I said, you know what? And I think this is going to become more and more important. I went to an expense, and there's different platforms that do this, like Circle and Mighty Networks and different ones. But we went with extra expense and basically built our own community. And again, it is a fraction of what the Facebook group was. We're nowhere near where that group was. And some of those people will never get, because that's kind of a casual association. They're already on Facebook. You're not going to get the full 27,000 because they're never going to go off platform. They're Facebook people. But we've gotten a few thousand people in that group already we started it over the summer. And those interactions are much deeper and much more meaningful. So the trend that I see coming are personalized communities. But a lot of times that's going to require investment on the part of the business owner. These aren't going to be, what's that old thing? When the product's free, you're the product. You're the product, right? So somebody's got to pay the freight on those really cool interfaces and all those features and stuff. And in this case, I'm paying it. But I'll be honest with you, it's already paid great dividends. And it's been an investment that's already paid for itself multiple times.
Yeah.
So, and here's another cliche, and sometimes cliches are true. It takes money to make money.
Yeah.
And it's been a great thing for us. So I think in social media, I think it's smart. And I mean, if you have the right kind of content, and I don't know that I do, but if you have the right kind of content, you can catch fire still with TikTok and Instagram Reels and those kind of things. I don't know if I fit that profile very well. I don't know that I'm young enough. I don't know that I'm hip enough. but certainly there are people who can catch fire. So I don't want to discount those. But I think the key is don't rely on any one platform. And that kind of goes across business in general, right?
Sure. Yeah,
Don't rely
100%.
on don't rely on one revenue stream because it could be great today, but if you're relying on one revenue stream, something changes and tomorrow it could go from a 100 to 0.
Yeah.
So you want multiple income streams, you want multiple social media streams. You don't want to rely on just one. More likely than not, you're going to have one that is the dominant one. That's the one you excel at and those kind of things. But diversify. Make sure you're posting across the spectrum. I think that's another good tip for business owners.
Yeah. Uh, do you think it's possible, and I think you probably just answered the question, but if somebody's starting a podcast today, how possible is it to grow it with as much loyal listeners as you have? Is it possible?
Yes, but I think it's harder
Mm,
because I think what I had was first mover advantage. But I obviously didn't execute as well as some people. I'm not Joe Rogan. So, I mean, I don't want to make out that I'm this paragon of perfection. There are things like that crime scene story I told you. There's things I could have done much better, much sooner, and my shows would be much larger. I'm convinced of that. But since I can't get in a time machine, I can't do anything about that. But to your question, I firmly believe you can still make it, but it's a steeper hill. There's so much more.
yeah.
There's so much more competition. When I started in 2005, there was this old website called Podcast Alley. And I looked and I saw, and there were 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 even, paranormal podcasts. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to compete? There's 6 or 7.
Oh,
There's
jeez.
probably 60 or 70,000 now,
Yeah.
just in my own genre. The only thing that I can say is that most people, when they're confronted with that, if they even start, they'll go for a very short amount of
Yep.
time and then they'll quit. Persistence, 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 quality, persistence. That doesn't mean you have to buy $1,000 mic. That doesn't mean that you have to buy a $2,000 camera. That means you just get the equipment you can and learn how to use it to the best of your power. I mean, I have some pretty nice equipment these days, for example, but I didn't start with that. And I could probably get 95% of the results that I get with a webcam and an $80 mic.
Mm, that's interesting. I love that you said that because that goes with just business period is consistency and the parallel between the podcast verse and small business is the exact same. Like most of them fail
Yeah.
because they realize it's hard.
That's the biggest thing. I have a friend who's been asking me lately, how do I start a podcast? How to start a podcast? And I'm gonna help him, but I don't, the hardest. I'll tell you what I'll equate to, and some I struggle with my fitness and health. I know that if I go to the gym every day and I do that for a year, I'm gonna see massive results. But do I do that? No. What you said about parallel, it's pretty much true.
Yeah.
The principles that help you become a successful podcaster are the principles that help you become a successful roofer. And they're the principles that help you become a successful fill in the blank. It's the same thing. The specifics are different, but it's the same general principle.
Preach, brother. Preach. I love it. Um, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in the, or what's the biggest lesson the paranormal world has taught you?
There's an old quote from a British scientist, and this is a paraphrase, but the idea is not only is the universe stranger than we understand, it is stranger than we can understand.
Mm,
As listening to the show's Campfire, which has opened my eyes even more so than talking to the experts, is that people call in with the craziest stuff that I absolutely believe. We're talking time slips. We're talking to people who are dead. We're talking about almost getting sucked into a portal, just Twilight Zone type stuff. It's not just, I saw Aunt Millie, which is amazing enough, but really just wild stuff, which I totally believe. And all of this hints at what I think, Ben, is in reality, we see it's kind of like ultraviolet light, right? Ultraviolet light's there, but we don't see it. And I think there's so much around us that we don't see. I always make a joke. I'm like, our loved ones could be right next to us, our past loved ones. Wait a minute, Mom. I'm recording a podcast. One of these days, she's going to show up and she's going to say, joke's on you, kid. Anyway, the point being that there's some really weird Twilight Zone-y stuff we talk about, and it's convinced me that we're only seeing a glimpse. Now, is the world a simulation, or is like God the programmer, but it's built like a simulation? I was talking to Rizwan Virk, who's been on Joe Rogan and is a big researcher about simulation theory, and he talked about how there's this theory that, like a video game, when you go to a scene, it's not painting all the scenes at the same time. It only paints them when you turn in as a character, and then it paints a new screen. It happens so fast you can't see it. But that screen wasn't there until there's a thought process that our universe is similar. I'm looking at this screen right now. I'm seeing it. The stuff behind me is not painted till I go around and look. And it's so instantaneous that it's painted. Now, some people think that, we're a simulation. We're in a computer game. Well, is it just another way of saying we're in a creation? The programmer's God? I mean, it really, when you start thinking about this stuff, it starts to blow your mind.
Interesting. I never thought of it like that.
Sometimes you got to go out and take a walk and just, or cut the grass or something, because sometimes you go, whoo. But it's true. And yeah. I think the thing that I'm able to do is I'm able to sit here and think about these big questions and really think about them. And I believe there's something to them, but I still end up going to the grocery store and cutting my grass and doing all the stuff I have to do as a person, as a human. And I think it's healthy to have that ability to kind of step away from it a little bit, because I think if you get so immersed into it, you can't step away from it. It can, it could become a problem.
Yeah. We're almost out of time, and I have so many other questions for you. So I'm going to ask them.
Okay.
You can tell me to quit when you're like, I got to go. Where do you see the paranormal genre in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
I don't know where it's going to go. I can tell you where I hope it goes. The thing is that, just yesterday I went to a local TV station to be interviewed. And I bet you they were assuming I was going to walk in with, black t-shirt, kind of like, I investigate the paranormal. And I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. But when I was growing up, it was a little more, I don't know, academic and story-based and those things. And then that became the hot thing, and there's YouTubers who follow that style and dwarf my following. I'm small peanuts compared to them. But the reason I do think I resonate with people I resonate with is more of a less kind of like, we're going to go hunt ghosts and get meters out and stuff. Again, I've interviewed plenty of people like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's talk more about the human experience and those kind of things. So that's kind of where I hope it goes. If it goes there, that'll be really good business for me, because that's what I do. But I kind of hope it goes that way, and we focus on some of those things rather than being so gadget focused and so kind of like this stereotype.
Yeah.
Because now if you say paranormal, that's a problem with my show, the Paranormal Podcast. We talk about cryptids, we talk about UFOs, we talk about simulation theory, and we talk about ghosts. But when they hear Paranormal Podcast, they're like, you do paranormal investigation. It's like, no, I don't. No, I don't. Not again. I have their paranormal investigators. I have great respect for people like Lloyd Auerbach. Fantastic. So it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater there, but I mean, taking a little more cerebral look at it and a little more storytelling look at it rather than just kind of the stereotype is where I
Hmm.
hope it's going. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I think also, and this is kudos to what you've built and your brand is, I view what you're doing as more of kind of what I want to do, to be honest with you, is sometimes people are afraid to tell their story and or they don't know how to tell their story and they just need somebody to, give them a platform
Yeah.
and to just nobody's going to judge you. You're not judging anybody. You said it
No,
yourself. Like
no.
my job isn't to judge. My job is to give them a voice. And that's what you're doing. And
Well,
that's why I love it.
one of my favorite stories, and this was from very early in the podcast. A guy called up. He was an older guy, and he said, I was a little kid in the late '60s, and every night I would see a leprechaun. Now, on the face of it, you hear that and you go, okay, what were you smoking? I know a lot of that stuff went on in the '60s. He was a little kid though, so he wasn't doing it. So, but really, well, I'll tell the rest of the story and tell you my thoughts about it. He said this really bothered him for years, but he never told anybody because everybody would make a joke of it. He was afraid. And then maybe 20 years later, he had some kind of function or family dinner with his brother. And they were all alone in the room. And he said, I got to tell you something. You're not going to believe this, but I got to get this off my chest and tell somebody. When we were growing up, there was a period of time every night I would see a leprechaun. And his brother looked at him with all seriousness, no joking. And he said, oh my God, you saw him too.
Stop it.
So, do I think he saw an actual leprechaun? No. Do I think he saw something that either he interpreted as a leprechaun or was presenting itself as a leprechaun in some kind of uh, form that he would understand? Yes, I absolutely believe him. Because again, I think our there's some weird crap in our
Yeah.
reality that's going on. I really believe that. Now, again, on the face, 9 out of 10 podcast hosts, 9 out of 10 radio hosts to go, ha, ha, ha. You can imagine the morning zoo, right? The guy calls in, tell yours, hey, it's 95.2. Today we're going to have you share your spooky stories. Now, Fred from Pittsburgh says he saw a leprechaun. Now, come on, Fred, what have you been drinking? That's exactly what you would get.
100%. Jeez.
Uh, so the point, I did work in radio.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't on air, I listened a lot. But anyway, the point is the world is strange, and people experience strange things. And who am I to say that they didn't experience what they said? My family had a couple of great ghost stories or spooky stories. And I think that kind of conditioned me too, because these were people salt of the earth. My dad was a steel worker. My mom was what we used to call homemaker, stay-at-home mom. They weren't making this stuff up. And just something really crazy happened to them. So I think maybe that kind of inspired me and trained me to say, who am I to say that people are making stuff up or they're imagining things or those kind of things? Now, that is not to say that some people don't make stuff up or that some people are misinterpreting sometimes. Of course they are. I think that's what we see a lot of times with the UFO subject is there will be a logical explanation or something will come out as a hoax. And then the answer from the naysayers will be, oh, see, it's all this or it's all a hoax. Well, no, those were, but that doesn't mean they all are. And that's the way that I look at this is that who am I to say that somebody's making something up? They're coming and they're being vulnerable. They're not making any money at it. They're not going to get famous. They're not going to get on TV on a paranormal show or anything like that because I know that's, these days I think a lot of paranormal groups start because people want to get on a paranormal TV show, which now is totally by the boards because they stopped making them.
Yeah.
And I do feel for people that I know that worked in that industry because now the cable stations have just kind of stopped, except I think for a couple of exceptions. But the point being is that it's always about giving the experiencer a place to tell their story where they're not going to feel they're made fun of.
Yeah. All right, Jim, I got to do it.
Yes.
What is the let's let's do it a different way.
Okay.
What is the one story? And I know you've listened to thousands, but what's the one story that you can still think of? Um, maybe that gives you chills, not because it's scary, but because it's real. Is it the leprechaun one?
Well, that does get my attention, but no, no, it's this one's a little involved. Are you familiar with the Roadhouse Saloon?
Is this okay? Hold on, because I want to. Is this the one in Wisconsin?
Yes.
That was my number one. Go ahead,
Yes.
explain it. Go ahead.
All right. So first of all, I got prepped this with a couple of things. We talked with Ti, who's the experiencer who lives in Michigan, and we talked to her 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, and it was a very popular story. It was a very striking story. I felt so strongly about it. I contacted her. We stayed in touch. I contacted her a few years later, and she lives up in Michigan. And I said, I feel so strongly about this. I'd like to do a video segment on this. Can I drive up and can we do a video segment on this? And she said yes. And it's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jim Harrell. And I believe the story when she told me over what, like we're doing now, whatever the equivalent, whatever I was using back then. Maybe Skype, probably Skype. Blast from the past.
It was Skype.
Yeah. But anyway, I spent a few hours at her home, her and her husband, and me and a videographer friend of mine. And as much as I believed her at first, just doing it over Skype, I believed her 10 times more once I met her. She was from a
Wow.
respected profession, retired now, I believe. We maintain in contact, and I totally 100% believe her. And a fantastic storyteller. So I'll do my best to give it justice. So I just want to preface I have a deep connection to this. So, anyway, the Roadhouse Saloon. T.I. lives in Michigan, but every summer her and her husband would go up to this campground up in Wisconsin. And her and another friend, his name was Bob, decided to break off one evening and go see this band that was playing about an hour away at this bar. So they went, and it's a very rural area, two-lane highways, and those rural areas, very
Oh yeah.
dark. It's not like there are a lot of street lights and stuff. You're out in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, they go, they have a great time, they enjoy the band. They're both musicians, so they go back in the back and even talk to them a little bit. So they're out there really late, like, I don't know, 2:15 in the morning or something. So they're driving back an hour to the campground. And a few minutes in, T.I.'s like, oh, I've really got to go to the restroom. And Bob says, well, kind of jokes and looks around and said, you could always pull up a tree because nothing's open. So she's like, just drive fast. So they keep going. And maybe another 10 minutes, they find this bar. And it's lit up. The joint is jumping. The neon signs are on. There's multiple cars in the parking lot. Thump, thump, thump. They can hear the music. They're like, this place, like, legally should be closed, but let's go in. So they stop.
It's Wisconsin.
Yeah. So Bob says, boy, I'm glad we're here. I heard about this place. Bob also is a painter. And they have this huge mural, apparently, of the Old West. And I've always wanted to see it, so we get to see it. So they go in. Sure enough, the mural's there. T.I. goes to the restroom. Bob goes to get a couple drinks. They come back to their table, and they're looking at this mural, and it is a full, across a whole wall of, like, the Old West, like you used to see in the old movies and TV shows. It's kind of weird looking, though, a little sinister looking. And the other thing they noticed that was really weird is the different people that were actually physically in the bar, the patrons, were in the painting. There was a woman standing by the bar, and she was what they used to call dance hall girl in the picture, all prettied up. There were some guys in the real bar playing pool, but they were playing cards in the painting. They thought, man, that's weird. And then they got to think, it's like, oh, we know the explanation. Obviously, these people are regulars, and when the guy painted the painting, he incorporated them as kind of an homage. Good enough. So anyway, about that time, this guy walks up to the table and smiles at T.I., and he opens his mouth and his teeth are all rotten, T.I. said. And he had gone over to they had an old school bubbler jukebox, the old Wurlitzer jug with actual vinyl in it. And he put on Chubby Checker's Let's Twist Again. That's a golden oldie. Even then it was. And anyways, was at the table and he asked T.I., he smiles real big and says, "Want to dance?" And T.I. walked with a cane and she held the cane up and she said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't do much dancing." And T.I. said she's really glad she had that cane. So anyway, they go back up to the bar. They're talking to the bartender. And they say, "Hey, the painting, all the people are in it. What's the deal?" And the bartender, who's this young, good-looking guy, he's just kind of like smiling blankly. And everybody was kind of like that. They were all kind of, just kind of smiling. It was just kind of weird. So when they go back and they're walking across the dance floor to get back to their table because they're finishing their drinks, and they notice something they didn't notice in the mural before. There's two swinging doors that were there before, like the ones you see in the movies where the guy walks in and he says, "I'm Bart, and I want to see the sheriff," or whatever. And they noticed two misty columns. And those misty columns were kind of developing. Like a Polaroid picture, if anybody remembers that. And they were getting a little more solid. One was taller and one was bigger. And one was taller and one was shorter. And then T.I. notices the woman, she has curly hair, and T.I. has curly hair. And it starts to develop a little more, and T.I. notices, wait, that woman's got cowboy boots. I've got cowboy boots. It develops a little more. It's pretty much solid there. It's a taller man, shorter woman. And she says, "Oh my God, she's got a cane." And at that point they say, "Let's get out of Dodge." So they get up to walk out and all the people are beckoning, "Come back, come back, come back." They don't come back. They go through the door. The minute they go through the door and the door closes, everything is black, like it was never opened. Neon signs are off. And there is a car, and I mean that in the singular sense, a car in the parking lot, and it's their car. Now, that alone would be a wild enough story, but wait, there's more. So T.I. is much braver than I am, and she told some people about this, and they're like, whatever. They were kind of poo-pooing it. So she said, "I'm going to go back." So she took, I don't know if it was her sister or a friend, and they went back. 2 or 3 nights later. They didn't wait till 2 o'clock in the morning. They went 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. She walks in. She walks to the bar. The mural is there. It's the same mural in the doors, but there's no misty figures in the thing. So the mural's still there. A young lady's at the bar, and she says, T.I. walks up to her and says, "Hey, I was here the other night. There was this young, good-looking guy behind the bar, and, there are a lot of people." And she's like, "That's really strange. The only 2 people at 10 bar here is me and my elderly father." And then she walks to the jukebox, except there's a difference. It's not an old-time Wurlitzer jukebox. It is for what was at that time a modern jukebox with, which isn't so modern anymore, CDs. And oh, by the way, no Chubby Checker, no Let's Twist Again on the selector. And then she left. Now, she used to say she'd never been back, but I think she did actually end up going back. But there are a couple little notes you should know about this. The mural is real. We have pictures. Chad Lewis, the great researcher from up your way, went there and took pictures, and I incorporated, with his permission, those into the video. And the place really exists.
Whoa.
The Roadhouse Saloon. I actually had called them and tried to see if I could get an interview, like over Zoom or something, with some of the people working up there. And they didn't get back to me. And I'm sure they know about the story between my show, and it's been picked up by some other shows like Spooked. I know, which is a huge show in the category. So I know they have to know about the story. but nobody ever got back to me. And I think it's still in business, but I couldn't say that for sure. But it was certainly in business around 2020, and those times it was a real place. So what is that? What is that? Is that a time slip? Did they almost get sucked into a portal? Was it an alternate reality? Whatever it is, I believe it's the truth. It's wild, but I still believe it's the truth. And that's the one that will stick with me forever.
Jim, imagine about 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. I have my earbuds in because my son, it was right when he was getting up. He was learning to sleep by himself, but he was still getting up. So he got up.
Right.
And once if you're like me, like if I'm up, I'm up for a little bit. So
Yes.
I put the campfire in, and that freaking story was the one I listened to, and it freaked me out
Mission accomplished.
to this day. And I'm glad that it stuck with you too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the interesting thing. And that's the thing about the campfire. It's like different things. One thing I think it's important because it gives people a place to tell their story. But I also think it has a couple other purposes. One is just plain old entertainment value. It's interesting, I think. And the other one is to make people think about reality, and think about what we're experiencing. What in the world was that story about? And maybe Twilight Zones aren't just reserved for an old TV show. Maybe
Yeah.
we're living them sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Jim, we have gone over our time. I really appreciate you. I have one last question for you, okay, though? If you could give one piece of advice for even new creators, but even creators who have been doing it for a while, including myself, who want to make an impact,
Yeah.
what would that one piece of advice be?
I think something that I've really tried to incorporate is take a look at what you're doing and find one thing you can improve on. Persistence, obviously, I already said that, but find one thing you can improve on. It's that old thing: if you improve 1% every week, by the end of the year, you're 50% better. So I mean, find something you say, hey, I could do a better job of this, and then you fix that or you improve that. And then you go on to the next thing. And before long, it's like, whoa, things are better. Whether it's your sound quality, whether it's your ability to present, whether it's a slight up. And again, I don't want to overdo equipment because I have some really nice equipment now, but it took me 20 years to get to this point. Mm-hmm. I started off with a crappy Windows PC and a headset mic. It's like, I was like in a call center or something. But so I think that all can be overblown, but find something that you can improve. And it could be something the audience never sees. It could be your editing techniques. It could be something about the business side of it that they'll never know and they'll never see. Because that's the thing. It's kind of like the duck above water. A lot of times people think what we do is easy, but it's like the duck. But if you look underwater, he's paddling like hell. And I think people don't see that. So just try to find one thing and improve it. I've really been focusing on that, saying, okay, we got that fixed. We got that. And it's never truly fixed, but we've got that improved. We just did a major overhaul on our Campfire artwork. And I can tell you, we have massive promotion this year on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, better than ever. And I think it's a direct result of making that investment, improving the artwork. So always find something to improve.
Perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Jim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being just an inspiration to me and so many others. Where can people find you? Where can listeners find you? And your books. I didn't even mention your books, Jim.
Yes, we have 6 books, which are compilation of the Campfire stories. You can find all those on Amazon. Just look up Jim Harold's Campfire and they'll pop up. And people seem to like those. And we don't do them every year, every couple of years, every few years, but we did one last year, volume 6. All 6 are up, and it's on Kindle and hard copy. Where they can find me, very simple. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. I always recommend, probably the lead thing people should check out is Jim Harold's Campfire. We always have 13 free episodes. They're an hour and a half a piece. So that by itself is a lot of content. And we always put out a new free episode every week. So I would say go to your favorite podcast app, wherever you're listening or watching this, and look up Jim Harold's Campfire, and that'll get you on your way.
Perfect. And of course, all that will be in the show notes and in the description. Jim, again, I appreciate you. And I can't wait I'd love to do this in person one day. So I forgot, where do you live?
I'm in Ohio. I'm in the Cleveland
That's what I thought. That's right.
Yeah.
So you're right down the highway.
Far.
Not far.
Not far. Very cool.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.